All right, guys, here we are, 2 Down, 1 Over podcast. I'm Josh Mason. This is Matt Flanagan. We're here to rock the mics. Another episode for you guys. Right here, we have a great guest. His name is Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. He is with Bally Sports at NBA Insider. This guy is all over the league, man. I went on his page. I'm seeing him big time interviews. He got his own podcast, Scoop B Radio. It's a big things happening for Scoop B. Hey, Scoop B, welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, good to see you. And Flanny, the man with the shooter's touch, I appreciate you for having me.
Yeah, that's my man.
That's word on the street that he has a shooter's touch, man. That's word on the street.
That's why I invited him on.
That's right.
Of course.
Trying to validate his shooting percentage.
There you
You
go.
know what I'm saying? Yeah. So Scoopy, for those that don't know you, man, give us a quick bio, a background of yourselves so that people know who Brandon Robinson is.
Brandon Robinson is me. That was my birth name. I have been around basketball for a very long time, dating back to probably the womb. Even before the things that I was doing professionally started, my interest in basketball actually started in grassroots in New York City. My family ran and operated two shoe businesses in Harlem on 25th Street. And we used to do sneaker releases all the time. So we'd have any sneaker releases. We had a men's shoe store and an athlete's foot sneaker store. We were the only Black-owned athlete's foot in New York State. And so basically, I used to see sneaker releases at the store. So Dominique Wilkins, Bud Webb, Hakeem Olajuwon used to do sneaker releases for a sneaker called Brooks back in the day. And then so that kind of was my interest in basketball, or where it kind of started from. I also had an uncle who ran a grassroots basketball league in New York City and Harlem called Citywide. And so I used to see Stephon Marbury's, Rod Strickland's, a myriad of other people come in when they were in high school, Kenny Smith. And that kind of that allowed me to kind of practice what I do now, building relationships. But that interest in basketball still exists today. But the formal training started at 12, doing radio with the Nets when I was a kid for 2 years. And I ran into Flanny in my travels when we went to college at Eastern University in Pennsylvania. And just really, I think for me, the thing about me that I would say would punctuate this whole conversation is, follow what you love, build relationships, and stay focused even when you don't see the finished product when you plant the seed.
Yeah, that's good notes, man. That's good notes.
Yeah, I like that. So like my question for you, Scoop, and I never knew this, but you were the announcer at Eastern, okay, for our basketball games. And it was awesome. Like, we had a lot of fun, but did you always see like massive success ahead of you? Because a couple years later after Eastern, I looked at you and I was looking at the people that you were interviewing and I was like, this is amazing. I can't believe Scoop's out there doing the deal like this. And, like for me is like, did you see that when you were at Eastern? Did you know that you were just, because you studied media broadcasting at Eastern, correct?
Yes.
And then afterwards, did you always visualize that?
I've visualized it since I was a kid.
Nice.
For me, I mean, you as a shooter yourself, you have to see the shot going in before you take it. The spot, who's going to pass it to you, at what angle you're going to get it at. I think for me, the education part was the formal part. I think for me, education was where being in a school setting is where you grew. For me, at Eastern for me, I think really developed even more socialization with basketball players and seeing them as people. I can't speak for every journalist, but I know that sometimes when you're covering athletes, they don't always see some of my peers, not all, don't see them as people, or they just don't know how to relate to them. And I think the thing that I took during my time from you and others on that team was interest in music, taste in food, the way you roll your sock one way versus the other way, just little small things. To me, that was my internship, being around a professional basketball team. Anything from being in the dorms every day, going to people's houses, partying, like all those non-social cues or social cues. Like, I was at a function over the weekend with a Hall of Famer, and they were enjoying themselves and enjoying drinks. And, I was there working, but I was on off. And I said, you know what? I'm going to chill. I'm not going to interview him today because I want the interview to be in its purest form. So some of those things that I practice today come from, our time in school. I've known what I wanted to do most of my life. I knew that I wanted to make an impact. And I think it's bigger than just being seen and heard. It's telling stories. It's impacting people's lives. I think it's bigger than just being famous, because I think a lot of people just want to be famous, but being famous is a byproduct of success. Being impactful is my goal.
Oh, I like that.
I like that. So Scoop, tell me about like your athletic background. Did you play sports? Were you interested in sports? How did that turn out? Because obviously being on the journalism side is a flip from actually playing the sport. And we did a podcast with another sports writer, and it's just interesting to see that dynamic and that perspective. So tell me about like your sports and athletic background.
So I swam growing up.
Nice.
I swam till about 13, 14 years old. I didn't play any varsity sports in high school. I wasn't as good as a lot of my other friends. I went to prep school. So a lot of my friends that I went to school with were 7-footers, 6'10", 6'8". I'd practice with them. I would hang with them. I played basketball when I was younger, and Citywide, the league that my uncle ran, and I played locally in New Jersey. Brevin Knight, who played for the Cavs for years, coached me when I was younger. It's a full circle moment because we're now Bally sports colleagues. He covers the Memphis Grizzlies as a sideline report. Excuse me, he's a color analyst for Bally Sports. But my collegiate or high school career was non-existent. I'm 6'5". I'm Black. I like rap. That gave me a head start. But at the same time, I think that for me, no, I didn't play. And sometimes even in my interviews, I'll tell people, hey, look, I didn't play. I'll defer to you on this one. But from my experience in the game, I see this. What do you see?
Right.
I think sometimes journalists in my field have had to take a back seat more recently because players are calling them on things. And I don't really like to be called out. So I kind of adjust. And but no, I didn't play.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a good point, because as you notice, players are starting to call out the journalists, right? And it's especially the ones that don't have experience or haven't played the game, and they're really putting them on a hot seat in a sense. So that's good that you touched on that, because it's almost like the journalists like to create this narrative or paint this picture of what the athlete is going through or what they're thinking, but really don't have that deep inside thought of really where they're at. So for you of storytelling, what is your approach on that? Like what is your strategy on really trying to connect it and make it authentic?
Delving into the shit that people want to hear.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I have an interview that I did with J.R. Smith over the weekend. It's going to drop later today, and it's likely the part that we talked about that will likely go viral at some point. It'll probably have gone viral by the time we talk.
So this is exclusive. Yeah, right.
Well, this one actually won't drop till Wednesday, but yeah.
Perfect. It'll be viral already. So, so I asked J.R. Smith, I said, listen, you have been criticized at points, and I'm paraphrasing, but you've been criticized for things or choices you've made in your career. Comparatively, Russell Westbrook caught hell this season, people calling him everything but a child of God. Yeah. If you're looking at him, do you think, meaning Russell, do you think that he's vindicated from, basically going to the Clippers and more? He looked at me, he goes, it's kind of hard to feel sorry for somebody who made $300 million in his career. And he said, psych, I'm joking. I said, no, you wasn't. And,
no, you wasn't.
But those relatable, candid moments, those are things that fans and consumers in media want to hear. As journalists, I'm a conduit between the player and the fan. And so you gotta find that middle ground, and that viral moment will likely be the thing that was the middle ground, the thing that the fan wants to hear, the thing where JR was candid, the thing where Russell might call and they have a conversation, but jokes, of course. But also just I think the art of storytelling and the art of getting reactions is what my job is. And so I do my job by getting that question answered.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I like that.
Scoop, I want to talk about your journey a little bit on getting to like this point where you're at now. You know, I view you, and I love it because, you know, I know you, and I think of you as a massive success. Okay. And even people at Eastern, you know, we would like, look what Scoop's doing, man. It's incredible. And I love your views on fame and passion. You know, you chasing your passion. You're not chasing fame, you're chasing your passion. And that's what you want to do. You want to storytell. But I want to talk about that journey. And I'm sure there was a couple road bumps in it for you. And were there skepticism that you faced? And even at Eastern, where, you know, people didn't believe in you and what have you?
A lot of people at Eastern that thought I was a joke or thought that what I was saying,
right.
Like how. But I think, you know, I've been doubted a lot in my life. You know, I prior to even coming to Eastern, I was one of 4 Black kids in my graduating class in prep school, code switching for days. I came from a single parent household till my mother remarried. And my mom was a single parent until I was 11, married my stepfather, blended family. My father was not in my life until I was 16 years old. My father had a drug addiction. I was going to a lot of different schools growing up. I think by the time I was in high school, I went to 13 different schools, 2 different states. Wow. I went to 2 high schools. I was getting in trouble a lot. I was always like talkative, expressive, was fighting sometimes. But basketball and entertainment and just being social were just the things that were me. Like I was the kid who got good grades in school, but wouldn't get honor roll because my behavior was all over the place. But I always talked to everybody, whether it was the school janitor, whether it was the person in the cafeteria, whether it was the popular kid, whether it was the nerd. But that was just on the school side. When I was going through my process after Eastern, I took a semester off, then I went to grad school. When I graduated undergrad, I worked at a hotel and I worked at Victoria's Secret. I cleaned rooms on the weekends. I worked at Victoria's Secret during the week. And I actually walked at Eastern, but I had to finish classes online. And then I started school at Hofstra. One of the other jobs that I had after I finished Eastern was I worked in Manhattan at this place called Click Kitchen. And basically I make money off of like referrals. So like now you have apps where chefs order food from like when they need to re-up on eggs or milk and more. They were trying to sell this app in 2009 where you get chefs to order their supplies. And I remember sitting in this office in Manhattan and was watching Obama's inauguration at the same time. And I was like, this apps thing is crazy. But the thing that I took from it is cold calling. People realize whether they like you on the phone within the first 3 to 5 seconds. Right. And that whole cold calling thing is something that I still have to do today if I'm trying to get a quote or I'm trying to get somebody to talk to me and more. So those are the things that I took from those experiences, working at Victoria's Secret, working in stock, which is very different than selling men's shoes or sneakers at Men's Walkers or Athlete's Foot, the shoe store and the sneaker store that my family owned. And then in addition to that, cleaning rooms at hotels, I think for me, you know, leaving tips for people who clean your rooms every day, you have a greater appreciation for people when you've risen from when you were in that same position after finishing college. I think, you know, when you talk about rising and moving around, those are some things I learned. You know, when I finished grad school at Hofstra, similar situation. Nobody was hiring, you know, with all the experience I had from childhood to grad school. I was living in my grandmother's basement apartment, was collecting at points unemployment, was on food stamps. I had the basement apartment had no stove, had no oven. I had a double door fridge. The left side of the fridge was a freezer. It operated as a fridge. The right side, which was the fridge, didn't work. I cooked on George Foreman grill, crock pot, microwave. And at one point was freelancing at about 12 different publications at a time, waiting for the check to come in. My grandmother wanted her damn rent. She wasn't playing. I'll tell you off air what she said when she said she wanted her damn rent. But the luxury that I had was, even though I was freelancing with all those different publications, I was building relationships with athletes, newer relationships. You might have heard of a guy that's going to be a free agent this summer named Kyrie Irving. A lot of my reporting has been based upon him and other people. It all started in my grandmother's basement on food stamp, collecting unemployment, and building from the ground up, literally.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, dude. So like there's a couple nuggets that I pull from that. One is I love the thought of you used experiences throughout your life to develop and increase your value, right? So I say it all the time, like for myself, to be a good communicator and work well with people, I forced myself to take a serving job because I knew I was going to meet people on a daily. I had to talk to them. There's going to be, old people, young people, black, white, Spanish. Like I knew I had to grab that skill. So that job, I used that job to develop my skill. Although I was getting money too, but at the same point, I knew I wanted to increase my communication skills. So that was an avenue. So I love that you touched on that, of taking things and saying, hey, listen, this is what made me better through my experiences. And the second thing is, dude, you were in the struggle, man. You had a vision, you had passion about what you were trying to get done. And no matter where you were, and I'm sure in those moments in your grandma's basement, there was probably doubts and things that came across, but you knew I had to keep moving forward, right? I had to keep moving forward, and perseverance was there, persistence was there. And then eventually it popped off. And I'm sure you had people in your ear talking about, Brandon, what you doing? Like, you need to get a job. You need to do something else. You're doing these freelances. Obviously,
yeah, my grandmother told me McDonald's is still hiring.
Right. Yeah, that's and I could imagine, man. We should have had your grandma here too, right?
Yeah, I would love that.
But it's a beautiful story in that sense, and for our listeners to understand that sometimes like you do have to go through these things, right? And if you really want something, it's not all easy, right? No. There's going to be a grind and sacrifices to get where you want to get.
And I think also you have to have some thick skin, and you really like I hear in your story and knowing you for the time that I've known you, like you've had to build resiliency on this whole time. And I think it's like rejection therapy, you like people tease yourself, but you still stayed focused on that vision, and props to you, man. I love it.
Thank you. I'll add that I think that the height of the pandemic, where everybody was bored in the house and in the house bored, I took it as Isaiah Thomas said in The Last Dance. I took it personally. I remember 2020 when things were bad. I remember I was packing my clothes. I went to the laundromat, and I was on my way to the laundromat. I took out my phone. I text Shaq, and I say this to say this. It wasn't a flex, but I took the being home and all the restrictions personally. I was like, yo, if everybody's at home, y'all gonna see my shit.
Yep.
And like I feel like in 2020, 2021 specifically, everything that I recorded, everything that I tweeted, everything I touched, it struck gold. And I know like the Shaq interview was one of those examples. And another one is an interview with Stephon Marbury that we did, to the point that the interview was so crazy, the things he said. Skip Bayless tweeted my name. He was like, yo, Stephon Marbury told Brandon Robinson this. I've known Stephon since I was a kid. We're very interconnected. I'll just say that that time during the pandemic, between Tex and Shaq, talking to Stephon, and some of the other things that I was reporting, seeing, interviewing about, that really, to be honest, raised my value even more in the eyes. I always knew who I was, but you have to put out that currency too, so people who you are, and it's a transference there. But I really think that the height of the pandemic was really a turning point also, because I feel like a lot of people ran out of content, and some people, they just were going to the arenas to get their content. But what are you doing in the meantime?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Were you able to go in the freezer and take out that frozen piece of steak and put it on the grill?
Right.
Have to save something for a little later too.
Yeah, true that.
Made or break. That was make or break. It made or break some people in the pandemic. Yeah. Hell of a pivot.
It is. It was a great pivot, and you seek the opportunity, right? No, that's good. So with all these interviews, like, tell me some of your top favorites, right? Who you interviewed, and maybe the someone that you haven't interviewed yet that you would love to connect with. What does that look like?
Well, I'll start off by saying you never know who's watching. You never know who is digging what you're doing. I'm in this in this space in my life where I go to events and there's a lot of young journalists who they'll come to me. I'm an aspiring journalist, and I'll say to them, stop saying aspiring, because when you say aspiring, you're here, so you obviously you were credentialed to come. So right. Aspiring should be in your lexicon. It should be, I am a journalist. I may not be at a me level or a Stephen A level or more, but at the same time, you're still in the game. That's saying more than a lot of people who want to be. Right. That being said, I think I'm in this reflective space where not only are those young people coming up to me, but some of the stars are seeing my work and are commenting. I was in Houston a few weeks ago at the McDonald's All-American game, and I got to the arena early and walked courtside and spoke to some guys that were sitting courtside. And that conversation, one of the people who acknowledged me was LeBron James. On the court, I said, Brian, what's up? He said, B Scoop, what up, baby? I'm like,
yeah, I know my name.
Like, I had to go in the back and was like, damn, this Ed knows my name. I'm like,
I saw that on your social media. That's sick.
Yeah. That's awesome. But so LeBron and I have had quick conversations in media scrums. I probably would say that, he's on the bucket list and it will happen. I think people that I've interviewed that have been bucket list, or rather have been great interviews, I'll say, are the Isaiah Thomases, who yesterday was his birthday. I texted him, man, happy birthday. And we had a quick conversation there. Isaiah Thomas has been gracious. Stephon Marbury's been gracious. Kyrie Irving has been gracious with his time, seen and unseen. Kevin Durant. I think where I'm also in this space is looking at the next generation of people. Zion Williamson and I have not sat down. Zion and I actually met for the first time back in February, but we knew who each other were from social media. So I think I'm in this space where I'm interested in some of the next generation. Zion, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I have had conversations about sitting down. Guys that I have, sat down with over the years, and it's still a vibe every time we talk. Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers. And then, I go back to my childhood, guys that have always, that are still relevant today. Reggie Miller making time for me as a kid in the locker room. I ran into Reggie last year in Philly. It was a Nets Sixers game, pregame. We were waiting for Doc Rivers to come in. And when he saw me, the first thing he said was, "What's up, superstar?" And I was like, "You're talking to me?"
Yo, that's my all-time favorite player, dude. Reggie Miller, that's my guy, dude. That's my all-time favorite player. Love Reggie Miller.
Yeah, shoot, baby.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
Shoot.
So no, man, I think I'm not. I haven't arrived. I'm still having fun. But this is my season. This is my time, and I'm paying attention to the next generation. I may mention that I was in Houston. And I'm looking at this next generation. There's a guy that's coming out of that's going to Kansas in fall. His name is Marco Jackson. He's going to be a problem. DJ Wagner, McDonald's All-American. He and I have built a rapport over the last month. And kind of full circle for me, I was around his dad. I went to two high schools. The first high school I went to, Seton Hall Prep, we played them in the Tournament of Champions, and he kicked their ass. And so I saw DeJuan the other day, and then just all that interconnectedness with Worldwide West being his godfather, John Calipari coaching DeJuan in high school, and John Calipari being the head coach and vice president of basketball operations with the Nets when I was a kid. So there's a full circle moment there for me, like as you see the next generation with DJ Wagner and more. So I'm just in this space where I'm old enough and young enough to have been around Michael when he played, and met Michael when I was younger, being around Kobe and known Kobe, and having that interconnectedness with Flanny, us being at Eastern down the street from Lower Merion, and then being around LeBron, and then being around the next generation. So it's a special place to be in, and I'm enjoying the moment, but I'm still busting my ass.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The grind doesn't stop. So you talk about, and we obviously, to our listeners, there are always good things that happen. So talk about maybe one of your worst interviews. Maybe it was in the beginning where you're like, man, you look back at it and you're like, damn, that didn't go well. I gotta work on it or fix some things.
So I'll tell you a situation where my late mother kind of stepped in. I I was at CBS Radio from 2015 to 2016, and we were going viral for stuff all the time. Like TMZ would pick up our stuff, the blogs, Complex, Bleach Report. Like it would just be like a situation where like people would tell Michael and Kobe stories, and just the blogs would pick it up every damn time. So there was this one time, Rashawn McLeod, who played in the NBA for years, told us this story about how Jerry Stackhouse was playing against Michael Jordan, and while Stackhouse was guarding Michael, Michael Jordan was singing the song by Anita Baker called "Giving You the Best That I Got." And this thing, like the blogs would pick that up, and like Jerry Stackhouse, from what I'm told, called Rashawn McLeod and cursed him out. And Rashawn called me, and we had a conversation about it. He was laughing. So I got Stackhouse's number, and I called him, and I told him, "Yo, so that didn't really happen?" He was like, "No, MF, it didn't happen." Da da da. So come on the show and talk about it.
Right.
If he said it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Okay, so then there was another situation where like Samaki Walker, who played on the Lakers with Kobe, got into this fist fight with Kobe. Like Kobe, not even fist fight. Kobe punched him in his eye over a $200 bet. And, like it hit TMZ. And my mother called me and she was like, I want to have lunch with you. So like I sat down with her and she said to me, she goes, "Brandon, I don't want you to be this guy." I was like, "What you mean?" She's like this guy where like people say shit, then people are mad at you. Mm-hmm. Like just you're getting quotes, it's cool, you're getting the publicity, but at the same time, you don't want to be this guy because it's gonna run out, it's gonna get old. And I kind of was like, I got it. Maybe not in that moment. Maybe I did a couple other more times because it was funny, it was cool, but like it gets to be a point where like you don't want to be that guy where people don't even want to talk to you anymore because of that. And I was reminded of that recently when I ran into Jerry Stackhouse about a month ago at the club. And prior to that, he wouldn't take my calls. So I saw him and shook his hand and I said, "You remember me?" He looked at me. I said, "Anita Baker, Michael Jordan." He goes, "Oh shit." He started laughing. And he was like, "Yeah, man, people need to stop lying on my name." Da 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 da. And it was funny, but it was that reminder, like how far you've progressed since then. But at the same time, that talk with my mother mattered.
Yeah, I like that.
That's good. That's good.
Let me ask you this: like, what's a week look like for you? What's a day look like for you? Because I feel like you got to balance a lot. You're very busy, but you're kind of a family guy too. And we talk about balance and the importance of balance. But what does that look like for you? How do you find time to balance all these things that you're doing?
Having a good team around you. I'm not married. I have a lady that I've been with for some time. She's patient. I have a dog as well. When I travel, like I'm off the road for like until the finals. But I still, make trips to certain things like locally, like if I have to get on the Amtrak or drive, but nothing where I have to get on a plane until the finals. Every day is different. This weekend I made a quick trip to New Jersey to do some stuff, and then I slept all day yesterday. Today I got up. I didn't have to if I didn't do this interview, I probably would have slept till noon, but I'm glad because I was able to tackle some other things today. But every day is different. I will say that for today, I'm sitting down with you at 10:30 a.m. I walk my dog. I have a sit-down interview with Brevin Knight to talk about the Grizzlies season. That'll drop later today. My interview with J.R. Smith that'll drop the next day. The J.R. Smith interview will drop today. Like every day is a segmented thing. I'm talking to my producer, making sure stuff is straight on that end. I'm talking to an editor. I'm talking to my cameraman who also edits. I'm working out with my trainer later today. So it's every day. Every day is different. This week is strictly home. I don't have to go anywhere. During the season, You might catch me Minnesota for like my season this year. Like there was one week in December where I was in Boston for 2 days, left there, flew to Minnesota, was in Minnesota for like a week, left Minnesota, flew to Chicago, was there for like 10 days, came home, was home for 2 weeks, then got up and flew to LA, was in LA for a week. And then I was off from Christmas till King Day. After King Day, I took the Amtrak to Philly, was there to speak at a school, and then left from Philly to fly to Paris because I was at the NBA games when the Bulls played the Pistons. Then I left Paris, flew to Dallas, was in Dallas for a week. No, I was in Dallas for a week. Then I left Dallas, flew to Philly. I was at that Nets Sixers game. And then I was in Philly for like a week, then came home. So like during the season and during like playoffs are pretty calm because there's games on every day, but it's not like 10 games on the schedule. There's like
right. Yeah, right.
3 games. So every day is different. Then, on top of it, I have my podcast. So I'll pick days where I with somebody's schedule where I'm recording something. Then I have my partnership with Bovada. So I'll go like I'll pre-record all these interviews for Bovada. So like I'll record like 10 interviews in like 2 weeks, and then that'll run for 2 months.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
That's
Cool.
good, man.
Yeah.
I like that. The flexibility in there, So what's your take on this playoffs now, right? Obviously NBA, we're in the playoffs. Where do you think it's going? Who you think match up in the finals?
That's the crazy part. I really don't know.
Right?
I think you look at 15 through like 18, you just knew it was going to be any iteration of a LeBron team. At that point, the Cavs and the Warriors. What I will add about that is this. I think many people are enamored with the young teams in the regular season, which is cool because that sells tickets, that creates likenesses, what have you. But the playoffs, to me, is a rhythmic game, which benefits people who have been there. So it's no accident that LeBron James is there, the Golden State Warriors are there, Jimmy Butler's Heat are there, and even Jokic and the Nuggets are there. Because even Jokic's team has a collection of guys who have been in the playoffs. I mean, you look at Jeff Green, you look at Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, you look at even Ish Smith, who's played about just on every damn team in the league. You see guys that are rhythmic guys who have been there. In answer to your question, though, I would hope that LeBron's team or Steph Curry's team is there in the West. In the East, to me, Embiid's injuries concern me. I'm not sure that Philly can beat Boston without Embiid in the lineup.
Agreed.
With that being said, I think that somehow gives an advantage to Boston in that series, and that the Knicks, who lack experience, they're a younger team, who are well coached by Tibbs. I'll add, Jimmy Butler has been to the finals. You say what you want about the bubble, he's been there. But if he gets hurt, that's it.
Right.
Kyle Lowry has also been to the finals. But I say that to say, I think you're going to see Boston or Miami on the east side, and you're going to see LA and Golden State on the west side. Personally, I'd like to see Boston and Golden State rematch. Professionally, I'd like to see Miami and LA.
Okay. All right. I like that. So who do you have in this series? How does it go with Golden State and LA?
I don't know.
Right? Yeah, right.
I think the Lakers are they built well at the trade deadline. Rui has found his niche, as has D'Angelo Russell. Anthony Davis and LeBron got healthy at the right times. But I think the Lakers have added support at bringing in Vanderbilt, bringing in Mo Bamba, bringing in Tristan Thompson. From top to bottom, I think they're a well-oiled machine. And I think that when you look at the Warriors, they're also clicking at the right time because they've dealt with injuries. I think it was very intuitive to bring back Gary Payton II. Steph is clicking at the right time. Draymond is clicking at the right time. And I also like Jordan Poole and Kevon Looney's role within Golden State. So I think the Lakers have a deeper bench, just like I think Denver has a deeper bench than in comparison to the Phoenix Suns. But I don't think that series is over either.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
So I like that. Well, what I want to do now, I want to pivot a little bit because I want to ask you, what advice are you going to give like your 12-year-old self? Or you look at kids that are coming up and want to do what you do and be in your eyes and be in your place, and like, what advice are you giving to the younger kids that are trying to do what you do? And I think you kind of answered it, but I want to kind of come back around to that a little bit.
I mean, I think it's the same advice in conversations. If you remember, you and I would have sometimes when at times when you would be in a shooting slump, or it would just be mental. I would tell, if you remember, I would say, yo, just let it fly. Just keep shooting. I think the same thing should be said about younger me. Like, I think sometimes people, adults and just people, put expectations and limitations on people. I feel like I incorporate some of the things that I'm interested in every day. Fashion. I like to dress even when I was on a different budget when I was in college. I like music. I like food. I like travel. I like arts. I like basketball. But I made basketball a lifestyle. I didn't just make basketball what I cover. And I think I stuck to those principles. I think the things that people laugh at you about when you're younger are the very things that are going to make you money and bring you success in the future. And you can put your friends in a position to do well. There are a lot of people who laughed at me, laughed at my methods, laughed at my technique. I remember when we were at school, and Flanny, when David Volpe used to score on a fast break, and I used to yell, "Touchdown, David Volpe." And I remember people in the crowd like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah.
And by the time I remember, like, by the time we graduated, right, people were saying some of my catchphrases. Like, yeah. I remember, like, I would be like, Matt Flanagan at the line, and I would pause and I would go, 2 shots. And everybody in the crowd would go, 2 shots.
Yeah.
and I think the thing in life with everything is, if you know you dope, your dope will find you. When you are him, as the younger people would say, or when you know that your shit is the shit, like your platform and your role in your tribe will find you. I feel like the thing that I would tell my 12-year-old self is just continue to be you. You is what makes you you. And those who don't rock with you, those just ain't your people.
Yeah, unapologetic, man. Be you.
Yeah.
That's I stress to my kids now. It's just be you. No one could be you. Don't worry about anybody else, right? Like you said, people made fun of those slogans, but then at the end of the day, you caught people saying them, right, out there in the streets. So it's like, all right, yeah, you knew it was hot.
And dude, I do remember those conversations with you, and I appreciate that. And also, I gotta say, you're a well-dressed dude, man. I follow your social media. You are well-dressed, man. I like
dapper, you know? All right, so we like to end it with a couple questions. Now, I know with the pizza joint, do you want to pivot on that?
Yeah, well, this is going to be interesting because, like, have you ever been to Northeast PA? Like, where I'm from, like Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area? No. So here's my question for you. What's the best pizza you've ever had?
I know you would expect me to say New York.
I would think that.
So 2 things. One, I stopped eating cheese. I don't eat dairy.
Okay.
However, in my travels, to me, while New York pizza would be the easy answer, to me, Chicago deep dish is a balance of Sicilian pizza.
Yeah.
And its own inner working. So when I did eat cheese, I did enjoy Chicago deep dish. But if I'm on the go, like I remember those days catching trains and doing things and when I was home, and you can't walk to the train eating a deep dish. You can walk to the train eating thin crust.
Right.
But in my travels, as a professional, as an adult, I did enjoy the crust of the deep dish.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. That's good.
I like it.
All right, Scoop. So if you're writing a book, right, what's the title of that book?
Scoop B.
Right? Don't stay away. Scoop B. I like it.
The last question. Is there a day-to-day motto that you live by?
Don't take no from somebody who's not qualified to tell you yes.
Oh, nice.
I like that. Yeah, that's good, man. You're going to have to get a t-shirt.
I see on your social media, you drop a lot of motivational quotes. I appreciate that. I do like that.
I'm talking to myself just like I'm talking to other people. It's not one-sided.
Right. Yeah,
I like that.
I like that. Our motto here is get your mind right. Get your mind right. So,
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Right.
There you go.
So we live by that. But at the end of the day, Scoop, man, we appreciate you coming on the show, brother. This was a great interview. Love touching base with you, hearing your story and everything behind it. You went from the grandma's basement, to the world of the NBA, and he's killing it. So we wish you much success and continue, and hopefully we can connect again. But onward and upward, my brother.
Gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity. I'd say this at the end of every show that I'm ever on as a guest. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
We appreciate that, brother. Hey, that's 2 Down, 1 Over podcast. I'm Josh. This is Matt. This is Scoop B. Hey, Scoop, can you drop some social media stuff that we can connect with you?
Scoop B on every platform: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think Snapchat is the only one that's Scoop_B, but Google it. You'll find everything you need. Scoop B. We're in there like swimwear.
There it is. I like it. And make sure you go check out that J.R. Smith interview. All right. Big stuff coming out of there. Hey, keep telling stories. Keep being impactful, my brother. All right.
Thank you, Scoop.
Man.
Appreciate it. Be good.
Yes, sir.